what I wish and what I hope to create is that menopause, growing older, getting the thicker middle, that all of it meant something that could be exciting.
Well, if you think of it like adolescence, you know, the acne, the smelly bodies, all the awkwardness, you get through it because of what's ahead. That there's driving, there's dating, there's careers, there's college, there's all these adventures ahead of you. And what we don't have at midlife is this idea that there's anything fun. It's only like nursing home.
Decline,
you know that there's nothing. It's an abyss of darkness. And what we want to say is, no, look, you know, I feel like this is the most creative point in my life ever. And I'm enjoying that. And we want to say, look, there's good stuff in this time. It's not just like, dun, dun, you know.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast, and I am Yvonne Marchese, your host. And today, we're having a party. Yeah, you don't want to hear me sing. So anyway, today, I have not one, but two guests. I'm talking to Cecelia Dintino and Hannah Murray Starobin, who are co-hosts of the Twisting the Plot podcast, where they speak with women who have twisted their plots and discovered that life after 50 can be filled with imagination, inspiration, laughter, and endless possibilities. They are lifelong friends on a mission to rethink what's possible for women as we age. So, of course, I'm excited for you to hear what they're up to. I can't wait for you to meet them and hear all about their plot twists. Oh, but before we do, I want you to know that I have a gift for you. It's December after all. It can be easy at this time of year to lose ourselves in holiday prep and planning. So I created a free guide for you designed to help you start taking the steps towards your next act. It's a workbook called 5 Steps to Your Midlife Reboot. You can sign up to receive it as an email series. It has some ideas and practical exercises that you can use over the course of several weeks to get past feeling stuck. You can do these at your own pace, as they'll just be waiting for you in your inbox when you're ready for the next step. And that being said, I mean, really, why wait until the new year to start? This month, I challenge you to embrace the idea that you can change your life any day of the year. You do not need the ball drop at midnight to live your best life. You can find a link to the sign-up sheet in the show notes for this episode, which is episode 27, or you can find it on my Instagram feed as a link in the bio, and you can find me on Instagram by looking up Late Bloomer Living. Okay, enough of that. Here's Cecelia and Hannah. Let's go. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Cecelia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Here.
Oh
yes,
my gosh.
Thank you, Yvonne.
I'm so excited. First of all, as I just told you guys, I'm excited to be talking to two people. This is totally different for me. You guys this is old hat for you guys, right?
Group therapy.
Love it. So I found you guys because Rachel Lancaster had mentioned you. I believe it was in a blog about, you know, her favorite podcasts. And then she was on your podcast, right?
Yes, twice actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And I listened to at least one of those and then was like, oh my gosh, they are so on the same track I'm on. And this is so perfect. I need to get in touch. So there you go. That's how I found you guys.
And we're so glad you did.
It's so much fun to find each other, right?
It is.
Our like-minded, you know, movement oriented, let's make aging great.
Exactly.
Company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, when I had the idea for the podcast, I didn't know anything like this existed. And then when I started really thinking about doing it, I did a lot of research to look and see what was out there. And for some reason, maybe I'm just better at research now, but I didn't find you guys or find, you know, now I'm finding that there's actually quite a few podcasts out there that are on the same road we're on. And I'm actually feeling super energized by that this is a conversation that's happening. Where are we going from midlife forward? It's, you know, It's nice to know I'm not alone on this road.
Right. It has changed dramatically in the last 5 years. When Cecelia and I started, there really was very little out there. You found somebody and you were like, oh, it's like a buoy way out in the ocean, it's
It
somebody
was
else,
right. We used to mention the idea to people and they would just stare at us like, are you crazy? Who wants to talk about aging and menopause and right?
I got that look. I definitely got that look.
Yeah, but now it's almost becoming like the thing. Maybe I'm taking it too far, but so many people are speaking and there is a network and it's fun. It's fun to feel the web grow.
It is. And the further I dig into this whole topic and this whole journey, the more excited I get about it. And the fact that people are actually paying attention to it now, I feel is really hopeful for where we go as a society, really, because we're all going to be around for a lot longer. We may as well look at what we're going to do from here on.
And we're a huge part of the population.
Right.
For us to not know what to do with that, to us to just think we're going to wait around. What a burden. I mean, I think we're here to say we've got something to offer and we want to be part of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't even mentioned the title of your podcast yet, which is Twisting the Plot. And by the way, totally want to steal that title. I was just telling my husband this morning, I'm like, I wish I had come up with that. That's an awesome title. It's perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so Hannah, you're on my left side here. So in my Western brain, I'm going left to right. I'm wondering, tell us a little bit about your background, pre-midlife, and I know that you guys have been friends for forever, but before you started your podcast and kind of started down this road, give us a little bit of background about how you got here.
Sure. Well, yes, Cecelia and I went to college together, undergraduate school. We were both theater majors at the University of New Hampshire, so we have known each other forever, and we've grown up and lived our lives together, which is terrific. And I originally came to New York and worked in the theater for 10 years. I worked off stage, backstage, both off Broadway and on Broadway. Wanted to direct, but in those days, female directors just didn't exist, and you just couldn't get your foot in the door. And so when my kids were born, I was a stay-at-home mom for almost 10 years, which just amazes me to think about it. And then I hit a point where I was starting to get itchy. My kids had gone to school, and I went back to school and got my social work degree. And because I always tell people I took a photography class and I became a social worker. It just opened the door for me and let me see that I could do something besides theater.
Really? So photography took you down. The same with me. Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was like a door opening.
Yeah. And I thought okay, that isn't quite it, but this will be it. And I ended up working for Cornell in their psychiatric hospital, specializing in psychotic disorders. And then 10 years into that, I said, I'm itchy. I need to do something else. And Cecelia was a great help to me, and I went into private practice. And it was in the process of my private practice that we would kind of talk to each other, and we kind of went, is this it? Is this just now? Is this, are we done? Are there no new turns, no new twists, no new adventures ahead? Because that's sort of the message you get when you hit 50.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, start thinking about winding down.
Right.
And I wasn't ready. So thank God.
Yeah.
So that's how we got started with this.
So did you instantly think podcast, or what was the germ of this?
Interesting. The germ of it was really us trying to figure out, first of all, what we had to say and what we wanted to say. And originally, as Cecelia always says, we did a lot of complaining. We complained about invisibility. We complained about the lack of information about menopause. We complained about a lot of things. And then we realized that really wasn't going to do us very good. It was, you can only complain so much. And then we realized that it was this lack of guidance, this lack of maps or vision as to what it could be, that then gave us the opportunity to say, wait a minute, we have to create it. And it's kind of up to us. And then it's, blank slate. So let's go for it. And that, I think, really changed our perspective in a big way and gave us an opportunity to start seeing that, well, if we're going to do that, then there's lots of things we can do. And the podcast was pretty early on in our idea. I think we both, it speaks to our educating brains. It speaks to our theater brains. It speaks to our therapy brain. And it sort of just seemed like a good fit for us.
Wow, very cool. Well, Cecelia, let me go back you up a little bit, backing up the truck.
I'm
So
waiting.
tell us a little bit about your before.
My before pre, let's see. So I grew up in New Hampshire. I went to University of New Hampshire, where I met Hannah. The first 2 years of my attendance at UNH, I was a psychology major. And then but I had always as a child done theater, like my poor siblings. I directed them constantly in plays and performed constantly, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. So I decided I was going to audition for the musical theater class at UNH, and turned out I didn't know Hannah, but we even lived in the same dorm, and she had heard me rehearsing in my room. So we actually met at the audition, right,
Yeah,
Hannah, officially.
exactly.
So that was just the most wonderful thing, meeting Hannah
Wow.
and doing the musical theater. We still have lifetime friends from that program. And then after doing summer theater, then I moved to New York. My path in New York was, what did I do? I started out temping jobs. I mean, I worked in I had to page the different janitors in this Morgan Stanley building and tell them they needed to go clean up a mess on floor 6. I mean, I had so many different temp jobs, and then I waitressed. I also worked at Actors Equity. But what I was really doing was taking acting classes. Like I got so into I was a musical theater major at UNH, and then I took hardcore improv and character acting classes in the city. And at one point I was doing 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, acting class. Like literally my life was preparing for acting class, doing acting class. I just recently realized how such a big part of my life was all about playing, always imagining, always playing. And so then the therapy, the acting classes, sort of were my therapy, the way I started to think about it. In fact, I started to go to therapy, and the therapist would always say, so what did you do in acting class today? And I would say, I role played my mother. And, I just we were just constantly doing these things. We started to do plays in people's living rooms back in the 80s and stuff. We were, my acting class was my life. And then I started to teach an acting class at a program, Upper Bound program. And again, it was so clear to me that it was therapy. So I thought that I actually I thought I created something, which was the combination of theater and therapy, right? So I thought, let me get my degree as an educational theater person, and then I'll do this kind of therapy work. And I called NYU, and I got the head of the ed theater department on the phone. And I was telling him about the work that I was doing and how I was doing these improv groups with adolescents. And he said to me, well, you are a drama therapist. And I had never heard of that before, right? I'm like, yes, I am. That's what he goes, well, there's actually a drama therapy program here. And Robert Landy, the director of the program, is sitting right next to me. Can I put you on the phone with him?
Oh my gosh.
It was like,
wow.
And I went in and met him the next day, I think. And he said, okay, let's start in the fall. And this was November. And I'm like, no. So, all right, January, come in January. So that was it. So I studied drama therapy. I got my degree in drama therapy. I had many mentors in drama therapy, and I was working at the VA hospital in New Haven with Vietnam veterans, doing plays with them and improv drama therapy. And my mentor there, David Johnson, suggested that I might want to continue my degree and get a doctorate in psychology. So I did do that. And then, so now I'm a psychologist, but my identity as a drama therapist is always there. And so at some point, so in drama therapy, we think all the time about the role that we're in. What's my role now? And at some point, I remember Hannah and I, we shared an office, but I was using another office. We were doing our private practices. And I just felt this, I can't explain. It was a feeling of like, who am I next? Like, who am I now? Like I told her, I had this joke. I told her that I was walking by and I looked in the reflection in a window and I didn't see me. I saw like I could only describe her as some kind of dumpling. But it I mean, I had gained weight, but it was also more this just lack of definition, so I felt like Hannah and I were sort of like, it's like sculptors. We were trying to say, well, what is this?
Yeah.
What who am I now? What matters to me? Who am I? And we started, our first thing, Hannah, was we started to just gather women, remember, friends at first, and just say, what is it like? We had questions we would ask, right? Like, I remember the one we did in New Hampshire, what is it like to be 50? How do you feel about your body? And we found that women really wanted to talk about these things, right?
Yeah.
Sort of, and it had been almost taboo before or something. There was almost like I think a slightly taboo to talk about these things, like shameful to not love yourself in the same way that you used to, or to be confused about who you were, or to feel uncomfortable in your body, so that was sort of our beginning. And but as Hannah said, we start to think more and more about the creative piece of it, right? Like this is a chance to create. So if I'm a dumpling, like that's a big piece of bulky clay, like what do I want to create?
Right.
And I think Hannah was like 5 years ago, I wrote that little piece, like, instead of aging, be a work of art. And it caught on, like so many people were asking me if they could publish it and stuff. And so there was something there for us around this sort of putting together our theater, our psychology, our love of story, our sense of play, and twisting the plot.
Yeah. And your friendship.
And our friendship.
Yeah.
We didn't think that mattered, but like the first time we had a huge crowd. We did a lecture on, I don't remember. I think we loaded every one of our lectures into one in that one. Like it was like, and then there's purpose, and then there's this, and that. We did the lecture. The women loved it, but they were lined up after, like, to talk to us, like celebrities, and they kept wanting to know about our friendship.
They kept raising their hand during the question and answer period. Like, how long have you known each other? Were you
like,
friends
let's get back to the lesson on mindset. But wait a minute, have you been friends for a long time?
I love it. Well, I have to tell you, when I first thought about having you guys on the show, I thought about doing it separately. But then as I listened to the show, I was like, no way. This is like a package deal. This has got to be, it had to be the two of you at the same time,
Thank you.
You have like a magic together for sure.
Yeah, we definitely have a how do I say it? Like we finish each other's sentences. We have a similar sense of humor. We get each other, and I think that is
sense
a
of
wonderful
humor is
gift.
the biggest part, I think. But
Yeah.
But so anyway, that's a long-winded drama therapy. But I've been thinking more and more about how we create the characters that we live into, right? And you also have history as an actress, right?
Yeah, we have so much in common. It's crazy. Yeah. How did you guys feel about? So you started gathering women together, and you had conversations with them about how their bodies, and then the podcast idea came up, and suddenly you're in the middle of doing this thing. How did that feel for you guys? Were you scared? Was there any conflict about it, or was it just like, because you had each other, did you feel like, yeah, let's go, we got this? Can you kind of go back in your minds to challenges that might have been there? Or
I'll speak from mine. Terrified. To my surprise, just really, really nervous. The first few times we did it, there were written questions, which I fumfered on because I was so nervous. It was awful. We learned, one of the very first things we learned was we talked for like 2 hours and then tried to edit it. That was a big mistake because we like it to be conversational, and we tend not to have like a direct question sort of period. And so to try to go back and edit a conversation doesn't work. So we learned some lessons there. And I
Yes.
think it's just learning how to give each other space and how to kind of hear each other and make room for us to just be us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I didn't, yeah. The opposite of conflict that I felt with Hannah, I felt like if I was insecure, she would support or laugh with me about it. And same with her. Like, it felt like it worked for us having each
Right.
other on board. And it almost seemed like we took turns being like the crazy one, right?
My
like,
husband and I do that most of the
yeah.
time. Most of the time, very fortunately, it's one or the other of us, and then the other one kind of
Yeah, it was like if
picks it up and
I
goes.
sucked, Hannah would be like, "No, we got this," right? If she sucked, I'd be like, I don't think so. I think we've got something here." So we sort of took turns with that. And I guess, it's funny, Hannah, remember, because we used to think everyone was bad, remember? Like, we
Right.
can't air that.
We
and
did.
then and then and then we just did.
Right.
We would just put it up, and then we would think that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. But now we don't even feel that as much. We're more, we're thinking about what direction we want to take the podcast, how we want to deepen it, or that, but we
Mhm.
don't have that feeling anymore of like, we can't do this. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool, right?
I totally agree. And I think the funny thing, well, for me, the hard part of the anxiety was I'm the recording engineer, which, I have no experience at. And so something would go wrong and I'd practically have a seizure. I'm so
Right.
upset. So until try to hold the fort while I'm over there going, like, what am I doing?
A lot of F-bombs.
Yes, it's so
coming out.
funny
We have to
'cause,
put it
like,
on mute,
Before we got started recording, we were talking about the rain, and we can hear the rain. So those of you listening, you might be hearing rain right now. Right now, I can hear my kids in the kitchen getting
Yeah.
cereal, clink, clink, clink. I'm like, twitch,
Exactly.
twitch.
I think one of the things that I have loved is that everyone that we've interviewed has had something really insightful and wise and beautiful to say. And that that everyone's story is important and valuable. And that's been
Yes.
fun to hear, and there are people who've never been on a podcast, who are not in the public eye, who are just living their lives, and they have such wisdom. And I've found that beautiful.
I do too. I really think that everybody has a story. Everybody has a story worth hearing, I should
Exactly.
say. I mean, it is truly like there's a lot of, yeah, I'll get all gushy if I keep going down that road.
I agree. And people also, Hannah, that we've interviewed have, been in touch with us later saying, "Hey, since that podcast, I realized this," or "this person connected with me," or "I'm doing this now." Like, the podcasts have actually been catalysts for people to make plot twists
How
that
nice
we
to hear
interview.
that
And
back
that's
from people.
really fun to hear.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Going back a little bit, I love that you mentioned that you were doing a lot of complaining, which was actually a key part of my journey also was I several years ago for Lent gave up complaining, tried to give up complaining for Lent for 40 days. And I will tell you that nothing will tune you into your own complaining faster than trying to give it up. And I was like, oh my gosh, even if I don't say it out loud, I'm complaining in my head like every second. Everything I do is a complaint. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? And then I'm complaining about my complaining. Oh my gosh. But anyway, going back, what were your complaints? Like what was it that you were feeling that drove you to wanting to talk about? Was it menopause? Was it the hot flashes? Was it like just a general sense of invisibility that comes with middle age for women? Or I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'll take it from you, one of you.
I think the thing that I feel like maybe the process of change is like, first is shame and you're quiet. Then you get to make fun of yourself. Then you complain, and that complaining is like saying, this is bad. It's probably an important stage along the way. And then you realize that you're the one that can make the change, right? That's ultimately. But we were complaining mostly about the lack of visibility, the lack of role models. Again, this has changed so much since 6 years ago. It's like almost
Yeah.
feels silly that the youth oriented culture, that the focus literally, and so now we're in our 60s, and this was over 10 years ago. The focus really was, the way to age was not to age. The best way to
Right.
age was anti-aging, and that there was somehow some shame in letting yourself be seen as someone who is aging, right?
Mhm.
And so we complained about that. We complained mostly about the fact that in the psychology developmental textbooks, there's like very little acknowledgement of this stage of life, right? It goes from infancy. We learn a lot about infancy when you're but nobody does psychotherapy with infants, so it's a little interesting. But you learn a lot about infancy, childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, especially as parenthood, like parenting, and
Mhm.
then skip ahead to you're dying in the nursing home,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
there's this chunk of
Alzheimer's.
about 54, yeah, Alzheimer's, and
Right.
um, there's this chunk of 40 to 50 years that's sort of like, and for a long time, what we complained about is that it was somehow supposed to be this, I don't know, we're supposed to be this like, now you're fully formed, just live your life. But
Mm.
like, it's not like that, because the other thing we complain is people are dying in our lives. People were getting sick. We complained about the fact that, women tend to be caretaking, and am I leaving any of our complaints out?
No, I think it's physical health and professional being phased out of jobs, being seen
Mhm.
as not necessary anymore. It's this loss of community, this loss of identity,
Mhm.
that I think is really challenging.
I was really upset about my body changes too. I
Mhm.
really was. Hannah wasn't as much as she didn't complain about this as much as me, but I really realized how much of my life I sort of like hung on to this idea that I was cute or cute enough or sexy or something, whatever it was. Like now I moved from it now, but I really
Mhm.
had a hard time letting go of it. I really did. And I remember, I think it was my 50th birthday. I wish I should find the card because I'm going to get it wrong. My husband actually gave me a card and it said something like, it was something about like, essentially like, don't worry, I don't expect like a hot body anymore or something like that. I mean, no, it really was. I can't remember how it went. He
Oh,
thought it was
Oh,
the funniest
Joe.
thing. He thought it was, he's done
ouch.
he really thought he was tapping into my humor. And he said it was just a joke. It was just a joke. But I was like, I can't believe I've come to this, that this is, right? Like,
Right.
I remember writing about it, like being, honestly, now I really have moved from that. Now it is funny to me, actually. It is funny to me.
Yeah.
At the time, it was like,
A little too soon.
well, and also that, like, I don't know, like, yeah, like, I don't know, like that somehow, what does that mean? What, that
Mhm.
was the thing I was upset about. What does it mean then?
Yeah.
Then who am I? Right. It's embarrassing now to me to think about how much of who I was sort of wrapped around this idea of like, you know, men who found me attractive. I still feel it a little bit, even though it's
I do.
beyond
I
ridiculous. I
definitely
still
do.
feel it.
Absolutely. And I feel the shame around it and the whole thing. Absolutely. In fact, I don't know how many years ago it was I started saying the old gray mare ain't what she used to be.
So
Yeah,
yeah, but if
awful,
you got a
right?
birthday
Yeah.
card that said that, no, I'm just kidding. See, that's what I was already making the jokes. I know that my husband's a dear man. I know that he thought he was. I can't remember, it was something really bad, like a droopy butt or something. I mean, it was really bad. I've blocked it out. PTSD. This
Oh,
was a thing that women were complaining to us about, and they still do. We still hear it from
Right.
women. Like, what do you do about? I just did a lecture on middle age, and a woman said at Columbia, and she raised her hand. She said, "How does one deal with the fact that they're no longer desired?"
yeah.
Mm,
That's what she said.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, we all want to be desired. I think
Absolutely.
I wonder if that goes away. Does it? I don't know.
I
I
hope I
feel
hope
a
I
little
hope
not. They're
moving.
so.
different.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope
You
so.
know
I
what
hope not. I don't know what I think.
I know. You know what my answer was? Because this is what I'm thinking. Like, I think that the beauty of it is that you switch to so much, like thinking about switching my focus from who desires me to what do I desire.
Mm,
That
yes.
feels so much better,
So
you
Right.
much
know?
better, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's as I on this journey and I'm doing more research, and I wish I had it to hand. I was just thinking this morning about I think it was Obama. I saw some video, some speech that he gave, and he was talking about if you just find your purpose, if you find a reason to do the do, that is going to be the thing that carries you through. And more that's where I'm trying to go.
That's the plot
Right.
twist, right?
And
Yeah.
almost from the physicality perspective, because I've had all these medical issues with my arthritis, and so for me it was exactly that: get out of the head, which is constantly saying I can't, I shouldn't, ow, what's happening, oh, am I going to have to sort of
Mhm.
like being, okay, that's part of my story, but that isn't who I am. So
Mhm.
how do I move forward with that? How do I make peace with the fact that my body has some issues with it, and I'm going to let it be what it is and do the best I can with what I've got and move forward, have purpose, have a reason to get out of bed, instead of, what I was thinking about, sort of the complacency of I can sit back and say, well, I can't do it because it hurts. I
Mhm.
can't do that because it's hard for me.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I didn't know that this was a physical issue for you. When did the arthritis start to really
Yeah. If
take?
I admit it,
Yeah.
probably about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When I had a hip replacement almost 3 years ago, and a knee replacement 2 years ago. I have another knee, possibly another hip, and maybe some back surgery in my future.
Wow.
And so coming to terms with that as the reality, this is the card I'm dealt. But do
Mhm.
I let that make me sedentary? I hope not. And I don't want that. So
Mhm.
it's all of us trying to sort of say, wait a minute, I got a lot to offer. Whether I can do it as physically aggressively as I'd like, that's okay.
Right. You modify, right? And
Exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know? And do I complain and whine about it? Oh, absolutely. If you live with me, yeah. I'll own it. I try not to, but do I have days when I'm like, this completely sucks? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do you guys feel like um being on this journey together, starting your podcast and all that? w- what have you learned about yourselves?
Hmm. Do you want to go? You want?
Um, do you want, well, I think that's a good question. It's a really good question because, one of the things about being a therapist and having a full practice and then doing this twisting the plot and having our groups of women is that I every now and then have to step back and I see, and say, okay, who are you now? How are you changing? What are you, what are you learning about you? It's not natural for me to do that. I'm naturally always outwardly focused, but I have been trying to listen to myself more. And the thing that I've learned, and maybe it's connected to this body thing, and I was even thinking it, Hannah, when you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, your body's been having so much struggle, but there's something about your spirit and your person that's just been blooming, right? So it's like that. It's like that's what I'm trying to learn, that I can evolve. I can keep evolving, like beyond the complaints, right? And so I think what I'm learning about myself is that I really crave to go deeper, deeper, deeper into understand. It's even hard to explain what it is. Deeper. These words never capture it right, but
Mhm.
the other day my meditation teacher had me to imagine that I was living up in the universe and it was 5 billion years since I had been alive, and to ask myself what really matters.
Oh,
5
talk
billion
about
years,
big
it's like,
picture.
yeah, it was like so freeing. So I guess expand more than in deep, like I just feel like there's maybe something to this idea that you can get wise as we age. And I used to talk about it. Now I really want to experience it.
Yeah.
So
When you said the word expand, something happened. with your voice. And so is it like, do you feel like there's like this expanded version of yourself from
Expanding
where you were?
beyond the ego, yeah,
Yeah.
beyond this body. So that's what I was thinking when Hannah was talking, like this body is suffering and something else is growing, expand beyond, even how I've known myself, so far to be, these sort of like, I guess they're all ego roles, right? Like, this is who
Yeah.
I am, this is how I feel. Like, just blowing it up and letting something else come, right?
Yeah.
It just, but it's scary, and we've had women in our workshops say how thinking that way is scary because they're afraid. What if the way I change upsets people who rely on
Mhm.
me? Or what
Yes.
if what if what if I really do want to go into the woods and not make another penny? Like all the people that depend on me, right? So we're a little scared of what could come. But
Right. Yeah, that is scary. That is
Yeah.
scary. We think sometimes, I'd love to make a ton of money, but sometimes I'm quite literally afraid of making a lot of money and having that kind of success because who knows what happens to your relationships
Right.
in that situation. So yeah, it's funny. And all that stuff, like besides making money, but like just thinking about, well, if I indulge going down that path, what would that mean
Mhm.
for my family, for my friends,
yeah.
yeah, it can be
Right.
scary,
And this
right?
is how women are, and maybe men too, but the women that we meet, and I think all of us, we're so conditioned. That's what I mean. Looking at ourselves is not, we're so conditioned to not think that way. We're so conditioned to think about how the roles that we're playing that are serving others than maybe who we would really want, what we would really want to do. And maybe they're one and the same. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and in the end, I think we need to trust ourselves
Yeah.
too, that we're not just going to throw out the baby with the bathwater,
Well,
right? That
that's one thing Hannah and I have both learned, and we recently did try to talk in one of our group sessions about it, is that we really see how women struggle to trust themselves.
yeah. And it's interesting, this idea that if I go on this path and I'm making lots of money, that I'm there's a loss of control. You always can stop. You can always control that
Or laugh.
ride. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
doesn't. And so I think we as women get ourselves in this idea that we take on a role and then we're in it and there's no variation. Like, I'm a
right.
parent, so now I'm a parent for the next 20 years and that's all I am. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be this. No, you have chance to say, oh, this isn't working for me, or I want to do this with my success, or I want to, we have more control than I think we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, and change the way you do it. Maybe like you get
Exactly.
down, like, right? Every what do they say? Every business plan out there looks nothing like the business that actually ends up coming out of it, that
Yeah,
but the trick is to kind of move forward, right? And I don't know.
absolutely.
We've also done a lot of business courses, and Hannah and I, it's just so clear. The other thing we've learned about ourselves is that we really have to stay with our values,
Hmm.
which are, it's like our new motto is we can't go for the money, we have to go for the women, right?
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it's sort of clicking better with this
yeah.
idea, right, Hannah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think for us it just doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel true to our values or organic to who we are to just do the hustle for money. And so we've decided, well,
Right.
then that we won't do that. That
And so the
doesn't sit
business
with
plan is
us.
about what kind of women do we want to meet this year,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, love it.
Exactly.
Love it that
Yeah.
it's values driven. It's not about this end game. It really is focusing on how are you getting there?
Well, that's one thing I feel at this point in my life. It's got to sit with my values. It's got to sit with the voice that I want to share with people. It has to be. I don't know. And maybe it's because we're not, as Chip Conley would say, we're out of the acquiring stage, and we're into
Right.
something that's more um, involved in just in sort of culling down to what's really important. And so it has to sit with that.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to prove myself the way I probably did when I was younger. And so it's kind of sweet spot in a way that I feel like, okay, I don't have anything to lose in
Yeah.
that sense,
That
Yeah.
article in the New York Times yesterday that talked about entrepreneurship and
Hmm.
older people right? And one of the statistics that was so shocking is 80-year-olds, 1 in 2 have their own business. 1 out of 2 80-year-olds are running their own business.
That is
I
amazing.
loved that.
Isn't
Right?
that like,
It's
that
like
gets
one
me
out of
so
5
excited.
over 50 or over 60, I think
Yeah.
it was. Yeah. And it's really, this is a plot twist, right? So it's the plot twist of retirement. It's a plot twist of the complacency that Hannah was talking about, of invisibility. It's like, and it's not about, I think for some, maybe it's about money. And of course, we all need to make money. This is the system that we,
Mhm.
created for ourselves. Too bad we could tweak it a little, I think. But like, but it's really about, and but it's more than just, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with, playing games or having fun either, if that's your choice. But it seems more and more people are really wanting some sort of value based life, right? And purpose, which we know the statistics, the research around purpose is just, it's linked to cardiovascular, cognitive, um, eh, autoimmune, mortality, right? Like people who have purpose live longer, are happier. Now, I
Interesting. It's
say
the same
that,
as altruism, same
yeah,
physiology as altruism.
altruism and purpose,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And it makes me think about, so really going maybe far afield here, thinking about how millennials have gotten such a bad rap from baby boomers, Gen Xers maybe. But really, for my point of view, and looking at millennials as a group, if you're going to look at it, is this tendency towards wanting their work to have purpose.
Mhm.
And not so much that they don't want to work. They just
Right.
want
Right.
work that has purpose, and they recognize that
Right.
at a
Right.
younger age than maybe we did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We are not
hope.
Hannah and I love millennials, and the, right, the younger, I mean, I feel like that's like we're, I feel like I could credit the millennials that I have in my practice and that I know to sort of some of the ideas that I have about aging,
Interesting.
so I know it's so weird how we do that, right? How we like, you know,
Well, instead of embracing the intergenerational idea of growth and development, we've gone to this sort of labeling. You're part of this lump and everybody's part, we're baby boomers and we're, and instead of realizing that there's value in the interactions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's exciting.
right. Yeah. I mean, what, like, I don't know. It's been going on for centuries, probably 5 billion years. I'll see if they're still saying kids today.
Kids
Oh my
today.
God.
What's the
Yeah.
matter with kids today? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah.
Jazz hands.
Amazing, right?
Yeah,
Instead
exactly.
of saying, ooh, kids today, because, it's always new. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
Right.
Please. Oh my God. I don't know. I just never want to go move myself to an over 50 gated world where there's no kids today. No.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love being surrounded by that energy,
Exactly.
It's so great. What do you guys, so here's a question. What do you wish you had known when you headed down this path? Is there anything that came as a surprise that was like a gotcha?
Yeah, I wish, and I think about it all the time because I was very, very close to my 2 grandmothers. And one grandmother said to me, I said, "What was your best years in life?" And she said to me, "My 50s." And I remember thinking, "Oh, she's whacked. What is she talking about?" I was young. Like, how could she say that? Ooh, who would like to be in the 50s, right?
Yes.
But she said that she felt like she finally, whatever, could speak back to her husband, my very strong-willed Italian grandfather, and
Mhm.
she started to do her own thing. She ran the town drum corps and whatever, she did her own thing. But I guess I didn't have that thought. Like I didn't have, so she even tried to make the runway for me, saying it gets good, but because she like looked like an old lady. I couldn't imagine that she was happy, So, but I wish for me, and this is what we're hoping to create, right, Hannah? And some young women are already telling us that they feel that, the hopefulness. I wish I had some vision, right?
Yes.
Because I felt like when I closed my eyes to imagine what comes next, which I had always done my whole life, I'd been imagining who I was becoming. I couldn't see anyone that seemed to be of value. And I
You
guess,
just skip over, like it's like this mid-age zone doesn't exist. Like I always call it, you know how like kids, they go from like this super cute, the chubby, the whole thing, and then they get to those awkward years, right? And then they move through the awkward years and on to like the young adulthood, and they've grown into themselves. And I feel like the middle age is like another series of awkward years, like where, like you said, you felt like a dumpling, whatever it is, all of a sudden, like, what is this
big
body that I'm in? And I always thought, you go from being this youngish, as beautiful as you're ever going to be, young adult, right? And then you get into that middle age where it's like hinky and awful, and then everybody turns into this little cute old person, right?
Yes. When I was in Italy with my husband years ago, this is also awful. Poor Joey's going to sound bad on this, but I'm to blame too. When we were in Italy, we noticed there were young, beautiful, voluptuous women. And then there were the mamas, sweeping the streets, right? Like with the aprons and really in Italy, the women do everything, they're running the store. The men are playing cards or whatever it was like. But I'm like, well, there's beautiful women, and then there's the mamas. And we came up with this idea that you just pop one night. You go to bed beautiful and you pop, and you never know when it's your time to pop into a mama. But that's what you're saying. It's like this, almost this, like, what happens and why can't it be something? So what I wish and what I hope to create is that menopause, growing older, getting the thicker middle, that all of it meant something that could be exciting.
Yes.
Well, if you think of it like adolescence, you know, the acne, the smelly bodies, all the awkwardness, you get through it because of what's ahead. That there's driving, there's dating, there's careers, there's college, there's all these adventures ahead of you.
Yeah.
And what we don't have at midlife is this idea that there's anything fun. It's only like nursing home.
Decline.
That there's nothing, it's an abyss of darkness. And what we want to say is, no, look, I feel like this is the most creative point in my life ever. Yeah. And I'm enjoying that. And we want to say, look, there's good stuff in this time. Right. It's not just like, dun, dun,
when I was trying to come up with a title for my podcast, and I was like, okay, all right, I like late bloomer living. And then I was like, oh, I could do like a little subtitle, like, we're not dead yet.
Yeah.
Come on, people, we're not dead yet.
Exactly.
One of our 12 in 12 group members was going to call her blog that, remember? I'm not dead yet. And she even made a t-shirt. But then when COVID hit, she decided that it was insensitive.
Maybe not the way we want to go right now.
It was kind of like when COVID hit, and I always say this, that people were like, those people over 60, they're at risk. And I felt so bad for them. Like, it must be so scary. And then I realized I was one of them. I was like, oh no. I had no clue,
So speaking of someplace to go, and what do you see this being next for you guys?
Good question. Yeah. Well, we're taking the applications for our second 12 in 12 group.
Oh, let's talk about that. Wonderful. Actually, we didn't even touch on what that is yet.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that.
I think it sort of sums up everything that we've been talking about. We decided that we wanted to work with 12 women for 12 months. 12 is like a magical number, really. Actually, I was looking at mathematicians call it the most sublime number and whatever. So, we wanted to have the women come up with a creative project. Now, creative, some people it's art, some people it's a job, but to create something, because we didn't want to just talk. And it's about this values and creativity and generativity, which is what we're talking about with the purpose, like
Mhm.
doing something, putting something, altruism in the world. And so we've had that experience with 12, 13, actually. We put an extra one in, women this year, and it's really been great. We already have 2021 filled, but we're gonna be open to doing 2 if we get a lot more.
We can get
Oh,
enough
wow.
people. So
um
it's an extraordinary experience.
How does it
Getting
work? What
to
do you
know-
do what do you do within the year?
Well, we meet twice a month virtually, and we also, Seal and I meet with them privately as well, on a like quarterly basis. But we get an opportunity. We take them through some steps and some homework that works parallel to their process and to their project. In other words, we want to work on process as well as project. And the idea is that this is a community of support. They work collaboratively to support each other to create their individual projects, and we give them things to think about that will help transform them. So by the end of the year, they have a transformation of self as well as a project that they're ready to put out into the world.
Wow, that sounds phenomenal.
we work on their future self. We
right.
work on their shadow side. A
And
lot of drama therapy. They have to do a presentation in July and in November. So it's been really, I think, well, it's just been great. We love it. So we want to do that more. We want to continue with our podcast, right? And Hannah and I, maybe like you, we're interested in having more of a mix where we want to talk to all women. We want to, diversify. We don't want it to just be, celebrity women, or, we really want people's stories. And we have a book with a literary agent out there yet, but we haven't we haven't done that. And we have another course we're interested in doing. So
we always have a lot of irons in the fire of ideas. So we're never lost for ideas. Let's put it that way.
I love it. I love it. Do people generally come into the 12 say it again, the name is
12
in 12
in 12 months.
In the 12 in 12, do they come in with an idea of what they want to do? Or do they develop that idea while they're in, or do they come in thinking they're going to do one thing and then they're like, no, this
all
sounds
three.
better.
All of the above.
All of the above. Nice.
We have one in the group that's like, she's like, I started with my project and I finished with the same project, but a lot of them, it changed. Well, because of 2020 was a year that everybody had to sort of scramble too. So,
but I think it's just an evolution of the people too, that as they've evolved, so does their project and where their values and their priorities are. And they may have come in saying, I need to do this, and realize that that's left over from some other demand or expectation that they felt was important, but didn't really sit with them. And so they start to go, well, that isn't quite it. Let me figure out exactly what it is that I need to be doing.
The thing we don't, and we really feel strong, is that we didn't let anyone get off the hook from doing something though. And,
good for you and them.
And that's going to be even more important. I think we were able, we certainly, it's that combination of the skill we need as aging, right? We need to be able to pivot and be, improvisational, but we also need to, it doesn't have to turn into nothing, right? No productivity. So,
these were people who were going through a lot. I mean, we had somebody who was a frontline worker in the pandemic. We had
somebody who had COVID pretty badly.
Right. We had people who, several terrible divorces. We've had people with
mothers dying,
medical conditions, caretaking, because we want people to realize that it doesn't, I should speak for myself. I would think, when this is over, I will. When I'm done caretaking, when I'm done
caretaking, right?
Which, what I mean? Know that I think then there's time for me.
When all my joints are fixed.
Right.
Then I'll do it.
We can rebuild her.
Right. I always say I want the sound. Do you remember the Bionic
Yes.
Woman? Then I slow motion run with it. But anyway, I digress. But in other words, that it's done in the midst of all of this, because
Yes.
that's life, and that's life over 50. Is our plots are twisting all the time, whether we plan it or not. And if we wait till it's all settled, we're going to miss it.
Yeah.
You know,
People would
Oh,
say,
I love
am I in a
that.
midlife crisis because I'm whatever? I don't feel well. I'm sick. People are dying. Children are. I'm like, no, yeah, but it's not a crisis. It's what midlife is.
Yes, I totally want to rename that whole midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Mhm.
let's call it something else. How about just life?
exactly.
And so, half of it's going to be good, half of it's going to be bad. It's the same. It's,
That's
and
right.
yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. I know you guys have things to get on to today. I could talk to you forever. This has been so fun. Thank you. It's been more like a party than,
Great fun for us too. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks so much.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And before we go, when does the 12 in 12 start, the next round for you guys?
January.
January.
It
We
starts like
actually-
January. You go it's the year, it's the calendar
January to
year.
January. Yeah.
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 Okay.
We may play with that in the future, but that's what we're doing. I think
Okay.
I think it's nice too. I think it really works because I don't know, December to me has always been the month of sort of like contemplation and celebration. You know, I just feel
Yeah.
like the month it sort of like unfolds perfectly actually. So
I agree.
yeah,
So
we're
what
gonna be
I'll try to
starting-
do is make sure I get this episode out for you guys prior to it, just in case somebody wants to
right.
jump
Oh,
in. Who
thank you.
knows?
That would be great.
How do
Yes.
people find you guys?
They can go to our website, which is twistingtheplot.com, and Twisting the Plot podcast obviously is on Sirius, Apple podcasts. It's on, trying to think where else, having a blank.
Wherever podcasts
Podcast.
are.
Exactly.
All the podcasting places.
Yeah.
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 We're on
Great.
Facebook. We actually have a Facebook group
True.
called Plot
I
Twisters.
love that.
And
Yeah.
we have Instagram at Twisting Plot. We're trying to be
Terrific.
everywhere.
Terrific. And I will I'll make sure to put that in the show notes for people who want to come and find you and check you out more, as I'm sure they will.
Oh, thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you guys so much. Well, there you have it. Aren't they fun? If you want to know more about Cecelia and Hannah Twisting the Plot and their 12 in 12 program, I'll have all that information for you in the show notes. Just go to latebloomerliving.com/podcast and click on the show notes for this episode, which is episode 27. Thank you so much for listening, and here's a reminder for you to sign up to get your free guide. 5 Steps to Your Midlife Reboot is the name of that. You can get it either by visiting the show notes, my Facebook page, or my Instagram feed at Late Bloomer Living. And that will also sign you up to receive a weekly email to let you know when the new show is out in the world. I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay safe and well. Talk soon.